Hey, you want to know what can go wrong with one of the cheapest dual cab utes on the market? You want to know what they're like to drive and live with now that they're a few years old? Most importantly, bud, do you want to know if you should buy one or not? How about we bloody find out? Okay, now you might not believe this, but once upon a time, the dual cab ute, it wasn't a fashion accessory. I know, I can't believe it either, but vehicles like this, they used to be just like tough and rugged work utes. But my God, haven't times changed? However, the LDV T60 bucks this trend, focusing on being an affordable, no-frills work ute that helps you get your job done so you can feed your kids, rather than existing to impress your mates so you can feed your ego. Plus, thanks to this, you might actually use the T60 for, like, ute things. See, what I mean is, many owners of expensive dual cab utes, they hesitate to use them for their intended purpose because they're scared of their precious ute getting a few scratches on it. Now, the T60 has been with us here in Australia since 2017, and it's technically still a current model, although there was a kind of, let's say, mid-cycle update in 2022. It basically increased the power, improved a whole bunch of tech and all that sort of stuff. And as far as trim spec choices, the range consists predominantly of 3 models across the dual cab ute body styles, although 2-door cab chassis models were also available for a short time. Now, engine-wise, LDV, they have changed the power plant from being one of the least powerful in the market to actually being one of the most. And recently, the T60 has become the first ute to be available with an all-electric powertrain. Now, pretty much all T60s are four-wheel drive with high and low range, but the Trail Rider and the Lux, they also get a rear diff lock. Also, the T60 offers a couple of different tub sizes, the normal one, or this, the Mega Tub. Okay, now if you're in the market for one of these, the very cheapest are going to be asking around about $15,000, but that's going to be like a 2-door cab chassis model. Dual cabs, they kick off from around about $15,000 to $20,000. At the other end of the spectrum, like I suppose a near new but used top spec mint condition example, going to be in the sort of high 40s or tens of thousands of dollars cheaper than an equivalent Hilux or Ranger. And just on the subject of, let's say, questionable financial decisions, guys, please do not sign up to the wrong finance package when you're buying any dual cab ute. So if you go to your bank or even the dealership, chances are you're not going to be able to customize or even really choose what finance package you're going to go with, and that could mean that you're going to be paying way too much. So instead, head to ReDriven.com and check out the driver-powered car loan calculator on the T60 cheat sheet, or click the driver link down there. That way, Driver will find you the very best finance package from over 30 different lenders. You can track where every cent is going, so there are no hidden fees, and you can get pre-approval in just minutes. Plus, do all that via the link or via ReDriven.com, and we're going to give you a free $150 fuel voucher. Plus, hit the Wiper Tech link down there, and we're going to give you 15% off and free express shipping when it comes to buying your next set of wiper blades. Okay, now let's talk looks for a second. This is the pre-update T60, so the front of it doesn't look like it's squinting into the sun like the updated models. And in this blue, with the black steelies and all-terrains, I think it's a pretty good looking thing. The only improvement I'd really make is maybe blacking out or kind of shadow chroming the grille, but I think it looks good. Now, just on the looks as well, some people out there will try to tell you that, you know, they don't care what their dual cab ute looks like as long as it gets the job done. That's obviously complete bullshit. We all care what our vehicles look like. This thing, it's not overly attractive, but it's certainly not ugly by any means. It looks, there's a dual cab ute there. It's just quite a long one. Actually, just on the size, if you want to kind of get an idea of how big these are, if you haven't seen one, think bigger than a Ranger, but smaller than like a Ram 1500, because there's an extension in the wheelbase because of the Mega Tub. Actually, just on the wheelbase, it's nearly 3.5 meters, which is, you know, I suppose great for sheer size in the back, but it can kind of stuff up your ramp over angle if you're planning on going off-road. Okay, now it's normally in this part of the video that we'd be telling you to make sure that all of the accessories fitted actually work and are fitted professionally. But the thing is, we found on the used market, T60s tend to attract less accessories being bolted to them than plenty of the other competition. Obviously, if it has got stuff bolted to it, make sure it does work, make sure it has been fitted correctly so it doesn't fall off. So even though the T60 apparently kind of populates the more no-nonsense end of the dual cab market, it's relatively nice in here. It's not amazing, but hardly any dual cab utes are. And a lot of people will claim that Chinese utes feel like cheap and nasty. I disagree. Like, it's fine. Like, all the gaps between all the kind of interior panels are nice. Materials-wise, like, look, it is still a dual cab ute. It feels fit for purpose, so there's not a lot of soft-touch plastics or anything, but yeah, it's honestly, it's nice enough. It's a lot better than I was expecting. Like, even seat comfort-wise, these seats are relatively comfortable. There's a decent amount of adjustability everywhere. Again, think of what you were thinking a T60 was going to be like. It's a little bit better than that. Like, even in terms of wear and tear, this thing has over 40,000 Ks on it. It is used as this owner's everyday driver. It does get a workout. And then for the more consumer-focused models, even though the ZL1 is a weapon of a thing, they currently range in price from about $140,000 to about $215,000. And then the 2SS, they currently range from about $85,000 to about $120,000. And look, I know that sounds like a lot of money, especially when you compare it to its most direct competitor, the Mustang. They currently range from about $35,000 to $150,000. Camaros, they don't. Let's take this exact car. It retailed for around about $90,000 when brand new. These days, it could ask over 110. In fact, the owner told me earlier, he's been offered 130 grand for this. So therefore, you'd like to think that the right used Camaro could actually be quite an investment. I'm in no way a financial advisor, and any financial advice given on ReDriven should be double and triple checked with an actual financial expert. Otherwise, you could be eating instant noodles for the foreseeable future. Written and spoken by Adam Morris, Sydney, New South Wales. But then we come to another complaint from quite a few owners, specifically the more introverted ones. It's that everywhere you go in this, everybody looks at you. And this can result in you spending hours of your life answering questions and talking to people about the car every time you park the thing. But I mean, it's understandable that everybody looks at it because look at this thing. You know what I love most about this design? They've found this beautiful way of sort of tipping the hat to the 1960s Camaros while still giving it its own identity. This is, I hope it shows up in the camera, but this is a hot looking car. Wear and tear is great. Like, even like the painted plastic surfaces, there's no wear on those. Texture on the steering wheel's great. Door card's excellent. The leather on the seat still feels super supple. The stitching's intact. Again, I was expecting it to be a bit crap, but it's not. Oh, also just on the whole wear and tear thing as well, apparently the cloth seats wear really well. Now, as far as practicality goes, we'll get the bad news out of the road first. Glove box is way too small for a work ute like this, but you've got a little storage cubby hole, not cubby hole, little platform up there, decent sized door binge. There's a little flip down cubby hole here, which you think it's a cigarette lighter, but luckily it's not. It's a 12 volt power outlet. There's a spot perfectly sized for your phone just there with a couple of USB ports. Obviously that'll operate Apple CarPlay. We'll get to that in a second. Two cup holders here, cubby bin here with like another little tiny mini shelf in there, and a spot for your sunglasses. And what does Jordan wear? That Jordan owns this. Legend Jordan Valenti is his car. He owns or wears Jam H20 floatables. I don't know what they are, but very cool. There's an extra hidden cup holder here. Hey, another little storage bin down here. That's it. Okay, now in the back seat, I'm exactly 8 centimeters taller than somebody else that has the initials LDV, Larry David. This is in my driving position. Not too bad, like good amount of leg room, decent amount of foot room. The seats are relatively comfortable. Your bum kind of sits a bit low compared to your feet, so your knees are kind of up quite high. That'd probably get a bit tiresome after a bit of time, but yeah, the seats themselves pretty comfy. Not bad back here. As far as wear and tear in the back seat of this one goes, look, honestly, I don't think anyone's ever sat back here. The leather still feels basically new. Obviously, every T60 is going to be different, but this one, yeah, feels like new. As far as practicality in the back goes, you've got your own air vents. You've got a power outlet here. You've got a couple of map pockets there. Okay sized door bins, pull down armrest with 2 cup holders, and there's a little bit of storage under the seat and behind the seat. Okay, now in the tub, obviously it's practical because it's a dual cab ute, and being a mega tub, it's a little bit more practical than the other practical ones because it's a little bit longer. Plus you get 2 spots for decks of cards and 5 muesli bar spots. Good that they've got those. One negative, but unlike say a Ford Ranger, the tailgate isn't sprung, so it's bloody heavy. So yeah, that's a bit of a workout opening and closing it. Now, when a brand can't sell on its like image or desirability, they generally just throw heaps of features and tech at vehicles to make them more attractive. And with LDV, yeah, they've done that. They've thrown pretty much everything but the kitchen sink at these, sort of. But the big question everybody has is, does it have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto? Good news, yes it does. Bad news, it's interesting to use. Plenty of owners have complained that it's just not intuitive, that the native LDV menu screens are an absolute nightmare. The screens can be pretty unresponsive. Even with this one, driving it around, you can barely see what the screen's doing. And even the screen resolution when it comes to the rear view or the 360-degree view, apparently instead of using cameras, they've used potatoes because the vision and the quality of image is terrible. Also, when it comes to connecting your phone, not just with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but just with like Bluetooth in general, apparently these can be an absolute pain in the ass to pair. Plenty of owners have complained about it. Oh, I should mention, most of the complaints are on the pre-update models. This sort of post-recent update, they're apparently sorting a lot of the issues, but they're still there. Now, actually, speaking of the post-update, these screens have become larger, but LDV have moved the air conditioning controls from actual buttons like this one to like kind of the touch sensitive buttons under the screen. But many owners that use these for like work have complained that if you're wearing gloves, they're completely unresponsive to adjust the air conditioning. It's just annoying. Go back to buttons. Buttons are better. Now, aside from the infotainment stuff, as you can see, even the early base models are loaded with kit. If you go up to one of the Lux, you get all this extra stuff and like leather seats and a whole bunch of other things. But the post-update Max adds all of this. While the Max Lux, it doesn't add just creature comforts, it adds like genuinely usable stuff like a locking rear diff. Now look, obviously there is so much more to the tech and features than just this, and if you do need all of those specific details, go to redriven.com, check out the full cheat sheet. Now remember how I mentioned that LDV pretty much threw everything but the kitchen sink at these? Sort of? Well, the sort of refers to, unfortunately, some of the safety tech. See, unlike a lot of the competition, the T60, it misses out on a whole bunch of active safety gear like autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, all that sort of stuff. In fact, it's actually one of the last like current utes to miss out on all of that stuff. But look, what safety gear can you expect? Well, it seems only appropriate that we take you through what the safety features are in a way of celebrating the combination of a Chinese ute being built and designed and sold in Australia's tough climate.
T60 配备6个安全气囊、ABS、牵引力和稳定性控制系统，以及自2017年以来的5星级安全评级，可确保您在澳大利亚恶劣的气候中保持安全。
Alright, so what's it like to drive, guys? We're talking about a very budget-conscious dual-cab ute here. Do you even care what it's like to drive? You do? Okay, here we go. Look, it basically drives like a modern interpretation of like a 1990s dual-cab ute. It's like old school. Now, so from 2019, these did receive like an Aussie suspension tune, and it has made a world of difference versus the pre-2019 models, but it still does that typical kind of ute jiggle thing that they all do. Look, the longer wheelbase with the mega tub, it does make a bit of a difference. It doesn't feel quite as nervous as the shorter wheelbase models, but it certainly doesn't feel like a sorted SUV like some of the competition. But one of the negatives with the longer wheelbase is that the turning circle, or the amount of space you need to do a UE, is reduced, and that can be a pain in the ass when you're in the suburbs like this. And finally, on the suspension, as far as handling goes, look, obviously it's not supposed to be a performance car by any means, and it doesn't exactly instill confidence in you if you've got to make some evasive maneuvers or enjoy corners at all. It pitches and rolls, moves around a bit. Again, old school. Think 90s dual cab ute, that's sort of how it handles. Now, engine-wise, plenty in the owners groups recommend that you get an aftermarket throttle controller. This one has one, and yeah, it makes a hell of a difference. Also on the engine, look, this is not a fast vehicle. It was never meant to be. And getting up to speed, like if you're pulling into traffic or if you're overtaking, it can sometimes require both an equal share of courage and luck. But it's an old school budget conscious dual cab ute. It does the job. It's fine. And like transmission wise, yeah, like the engine, it just does the job as well. Although some of the earlier ones, they can get a little bit hot under the collar if they're towing or doing any hard work. Now look, as far as driving it in its natural habitat, which let's be honest, it is places like this. It's the suburbs and built up metropolitan areas. It's okay. Like, vision out the front's quite good because the way the body works, you can judge the parameters of the vehicle quite easily. Out the back, like, you are aware it is a big, long vehicle, so reverse parking and getting into tight spots, it can be a challenge. Also because the actual cameras are terrible and some of the sensors, you just kind of don't trust them. Yeah, you are aware that it's a big vehicle pretty much all the time. As far as sounds go, look, a lot of owners complain about rattles and squeaks and plastic noises. This one, not at all. There are no rattles, no weird squeaks. Engine-wise, it sounds, again, like an old 90s diesel work truck. Like, engine note clatters along like an old diesel. Now look, as far as off-road ability goes, look, obviously these don't have, in standard form, these don't have a lot of the chops of some of the competition, but with some smart mods fitted, they're capable enough, they can do the job. But the positive is, because one of these, even with mods, is probably still going to be cheaper than a completely standard, say, Hilux or Ranger, you might be more inclined to actually properly take this off-road and push the limits rather than being petrified that you might scratch or dent the Hilux. Okay, now for the moment in the video we've all been waiting for. What goes wrong with these? Let's start with the exterior. And first up, it's bloody rust. Now this is concerning because it's a relatively new vehicle that's been designed apparently to handle the wilderness, so it shouldn't get rust at all. Most of the rust complaints are coming from underneath the vehicle, so get under there, just check it thoroughly for any signs of rust. But maybe a bigger issue is that a few body shops have reported that there's insufficient rust protection within the panels itself. So basically rust is forming between body panels, and you sometimes can't see that unless the panel is off. That's not a good thing, guys. Actually, just on that, Auto Expert have published a story. It's an absolute horror story when it comes to rust on these. We're gonna add the link down there. Make sure you read it because it's terrifying. Now, the good news with all this is that LDV from 2018 have given these a 10-year rust and corrosion warranty, and the majority of LDV T60 owners haven't complained about any rust problems. But the drama is, if the rust is forming between the panels, a lot of owners might not even know that their vehicle is rusting at all until it's too late. And that 10-year warranty is good, but then what happens after the 10 years? In 12 years, are these just going to completely fall apart? Who knows? Also, just on the rust as well, a lot of dealerships offer like optional rust protection. It's complete bullshit, guys. Most of that stuff doesn't work. It's an absolute joke. You may be better off just spraying the whole car with fish oil instead. Okay, next up with the 360-degree cameras. Loads of complaints with this. Everything from like them just not working or freezing, so you've got to restart the car to get them going again, or the cameras don't line up, or maybe the vision quality is different between all the cameras. Yeah, issues there. Okay, next up, the rain sensors apparently aren't sensitive enough. No matter how much it rains, they don't seem to recognize condensation or precipitation, and the wipers don't work. And then there's this like weird sporadic stuff, like apparently the fuel filler cap, it can open if the driver's door is all the way open. And then there's just some kind of random weird build quality issues and electronic gremlins here and there. They're more sporadic, not what we'd call common. Now inside, the major problems seem to be related to anything with electricity running to it. First up with the infotainment systems. Oh my God, there are so many complaints with these things. Everything from like the screen just not working, turning black, sometimes turning blue or purple. Sometimes, like even though it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, apparently some owners are saying that it's almost like the phone just will not connect. The car will not recognize the phone at all. Actually, just on the whole, certain phones not connecting to Apple CarPlay, my phone, yeah, nah, will not connect. Doesn't recognize it. Sam, that's filming this right now, connected his phone, easy. Then there are weird ones, like Apple CarPlay working just fine, but then when you select reverse, it kills Apple CarPlay, but then when you select back into drive, Apple CarPlay doesn't come back up. The radio comes on, but the radio comes on at like full volume. Even other owners that will just say that the volume, they'll be driving along and the volume just starts randomly increasing to full volume. Weird stuff. Now the good news with this is that many LDV dealerships have either completely replaced these infotainment systems, they've given them a total software update, so that can fix them. But in saying that, a bunch of other owners have said that even the replacements and the software update hasn't done anything. They're still having all sorts of issues. So maybe the best thing to do is just replace this whole thing with a much higher quality aftermarket unit. Super disappointing that you've got to do that on a pretty current ute. Okay, next up, apparently the blind spot warnings, they just can offer like false alerts. Some owners have complained that even just some light off-roading can send the whole car into like a limp home mode. The cruise control, it can apparently play up. Sometimes it just won't engage, other times it will just disengage randomly. Loads of owners have complained that the reverse sensors, they don't cut out when you attach a trailer, so they're just reverse beeps and bongs just go on forever. And then many owners have complained about just quality issues like stitching coming loose and just lots of random rattles and squeaks and weird noises all over the place. Oh, also the rear seat seatbelt sensor, it will go off if you've got the seatbelts plugged in but no one sitting in the seat, and it won't stop. And then like the exterior, it's just a whole bunch of other sporadic reports. They were the more common ones, but yeah, you go through the forums of the owners groups and like, yeah, you name it, and there's someone complaining about something in here. Now in saying all of that, most of these on the used market are still covered by like the full factory LDV warranty, so you'd expect that a lot of these issues will be resolved. In saying that, the really early models of these, they are now coming out of their warranty. So yeah, if you're buying one without a warranty, that's risky. But if you're doing it, just make sure that everything works. Now, before we get into mechanically what can go wrong with these, a massive shout out to Emma and Jordan for lending us their T60. You guys are absolute legends. Actually, anyone out there, if you've got like an interesting car that you'd like to see us make a video of, can you let us know in the comments or over on the socials? That'd be awesome. Secondly, LDV owners groups. You bloody legends. Your advice and knowledge has been fantastic, and we couldn't have made this video without you. And finally, thank you. We simply cannot get over the response ReDriven is getting, and seeing that subscriber count just constantly growing honestly blows our minds. But we want to make you a deal. If you haven't subscribed, the more of you that subscribe and support ReDriven, well, the bigger and better these car videos can become for you. Okay, now mechanically, what can go wrong with the T60? Well, I'm not qualified to tell you. I'm not a mechanic, but Jim is.
These things are a bit of a parts bin special, and it just shows how incestuous the automotive industry really can be. Engined by MV Motori, which is basically the same, but a little bit different as the turbo diesel in the Holden and Chev Colorado and the Jeep Wrangler. Out of the two automatic transmissions available, well, one of them is an 8-speed ZF, which is used by a bunch of manufacturers in a bunch of rear and four-wheel drive applications. And the other one, the 6-speed, is made by Punch Powertrains. The manual 6-speed is built by Hyundai Dymos, a Borg Warner transfer case and an Eaton diff. I'll start with the turbo diesel, the MV Motori turbo diesel. They are known for EGR cooler failures where the oil and coolant become cross-contaminated, makes a terrible mess. They also have EGR valve complications too. They are known occasionally for turbo failures, but that can be connected to poor servicing. A really common problem on these is cracked intercoolers and split intercooler pipes. And they are also known for having fairly common DPF complications. Now, some of those DPF complications are caused by cracked intercoolers and cracked intercooler pipes. Often misdiagnosed, and people spend a lot of time on the DPF when it really isn't that, it's just a cracked inlet pipe. Glow plug failure on these is a pretty common problem. It's not a huge job, sometimes covered under warranty, but the later ones obviously not. It's about a 2 or 3 hour job, not too complicated. And they do have their fair share of oil leaks too, most commonly from the rear main oil seal. Now, a lot of people complain about the throttle lag on these things. That's where it just feels like the throttle pedal's connected to the engine with a rubber band. That can be helped a lot with a throttle controller. Now, here's a pro tip too. If you have any engine-related warranty claims, some dealerships may not honour those warranty claims if the vehicle's fitted with a throttle controller. So just saying. What I mean there is if you have a problem and it's on a tow truck, take the throttle controller out before it gets to the dealership. Overheating issues, yes, they have them. Sometimes it's a faulty thermofan, sometimes it's the fan speed controller. Another common issue is the bull bar on the front and all the accessories bolted to it. They do not like that. The wheel studs on these things are actually made of cheese, so do not over tighten them. For those of you playing at home, it's 120 Newton meters. Now the transmissions, the 8-speed, that is a ZF as I mentioned, and it is very reliable and you're very unlikely to have issues with it if it's well serviced. The 6-speed auto, it does get a lot of criticism for harsh shifting and shuddering on downshifts. Now apparently that's inherent to the vehicle and people are told to just put up with it. Now that's all well and good, but let's see how that pans out in 5 or 10 years time when they're all out of warranty. I reckon it's going to be a problem. The biggest complaint with the manual is the premature clutch failure. Now a lot of these aren't being honoured under warranty because it's a consumable component, but if they're failing at about 40,000 Ks, there is either a problem there or people are just shit drivers, but it happens a lot. So mechanically, yeah, they do have a few problems, but really no more or less than a lot of other late model dual cab utes. Should you buy one? Let's find out.
Okay, so after all of that, should you buy one? Look, we understand that whole what goes wrong section was pretty bloody confronting, but it's really important to recognize that there are thousands of T60 owners, just like Emma and Jordan that own this one, that have never had a major issue with it. But guys, there's a very important fact to remember here. No matter what make or model, every dual cab ute out there is a bit shit, and they're all pretty good. So therefore, we're cautiously inclined to recommend a T60 because with every dual cab ute on the market having its own fair share of issues, sometimes costing tens of thousands of dollars to fix, doesn't it just make sense to go with the one that has the lowest cost of admission? Look, sure, it won't stroke your ego like a Ranger or a Hilux or an Amarok, and the majority of others on the used market come with far more established reputations for reliability, but they all ask many thousands of dollars more than the LDV. Look guys, don't get us wrong, the T60 is very, very, very far from perfect, And you're arguably probably still better off buying like a used Triton with way more kilometers on it than one of these. But if you just have to get a T60, please make sure you get a thorough pre-purchase inspection carried out, do your due diligence, watch our ultimate 4x4 buyer's guide, and yeah, okay, get one. Look, overall, the T60, it is a gamble, but hopefully it's going to be a more affordable gamble than the majority of others on the market. Which brings us to a question for you guys. Is it ridiculous to buy one of these, or would you buy one? If you weren't going to get one of these, what would you get instead? Let us know in the comments. See you next time. Plus, thanks to this, you might actually... Now finally on the suspension, as far as handling goes, guys, they're super easy to order online. They're going to be shipped to your door. They're super easy to fit, and they're going to wipe like a thing with